Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good. So nice to meet you. Um,
Sure.
so, Tim, nice to hear that you're also um, into AI with your work. I am obsessed with it for what I do too. So this is a fun conversation for me because I find myself defending the fact that I'm using it. I don't know about you, but people either feel you're betraying the creative spirit by using AI, or that AI is taking over the world and you're a participant in the demise. And so, what do you think about that? What are your
Hmm.
thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean that's the battlefront of the the rhetorical battlefront that I've been on for the whole time. Um, Trying to convince people its usage in architectural design and how that's enabled us to do so much more in such a shorter time, but without the sacrifice of quality. We see it as a tool, much like any other tools that came before, which accelerates what we do. But as the architect or the artist behind the tool, you have a certain sense of responsibility to uphold. So, of course, any tool you can bypass those responsibilities and do something whimsical. But of course, once you bypass those human responsibilities, things will come out subpar. And that's why I say the onus is on the architects and the designers to make sure that the tools you use do not um, control what you do, but you control the tool so that you're upholding the exact same human values that you've upheld with other tool sets. And again, I love to make metaphors all the time with previous tools that have revolutionized what we do. For example, with photography, photograph. Taking a photograph is quite simple nowadays. You just click a button, and you can say that the technology has dumbed down the art of photography, but you talk to a photographer, they very much will tell you that as simple as it can be, it doesn't have to be. And within that tool set, you're able to learn how to triumph beyond what average of humanity can accomplish with the tools. And as the spirit of the artist or the architect is, no matter what tool you're given, the spirit of the artist is figuring out how you can use the same tools, but elevate beyond what the general populace
Mm.
can do with it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I find I also looked at AI as a tool for me to use for my archive. I have an archive that's 58 years of designs, and for the longevity of the company and for the prosperity of the company, having this archive and an IP protected system program, um, anybody can really put in a prompt and it's all Norma Kamali. It's only Norma Kamali in there. So anything they prompt will generate a version of Norma Kamali. Maybe a buyer wants a certain shirt dress of some kind, and then in comes this. So that's a tool. But my question to you, and where I find the most fun, is when I ask ChatGPT if AI can create original ideas, original designs. And if you really persist, it says no. But if you give me an idea, I can give you ideas. So it has to be given something, has to be given direction, it has to be given a gem of something to then really kind of perform in the way you want. So in that concept, what have you found, and how have you been finding the way to be creative with AI?
That's a very interesting and almost deep and philosophical question because I feel first you have to define what is creativity, what is originality and authenticity. Because for the longest time in my career, or even for my master's thesis, we're studying biomimicry, biomimetics, and learning about the natural systems that exists in our natural environment and learning how to extrapolate design from natural processes, going from evolution to fractal systems to forms of genetic optimization principles, which we use in urban design and whatnot. And we find design in various places that there are no, what you can consider an originator, a designer, but we find designs in nature. We can look at a cloud and there are designs in those.
Mm,
So I see it from that perspective, in that now we are inundated with new possibilities of generating
yeah,
possibilities of design. And it's up to us to be the narrators of and the receiver of these raw content, curate them and bring them to finesse, to refine, to be palatable for whatever our target audience is, whatever our target clients or occupier of the occupants of the architecture is. And so that's the process I believe we as architects are currently all doing to do with design to bring into the realm of human experience.
experience. Yeah. So, tell me about the project you've created, um, all with AI. It sounds really fascinating. So, I love that you had a real challenge. You were presented with a real challenge, and then you went forward with AI. So, where is it? What was the challenge? How did you approach the experience?
Mhm. Well, for example, our Lake Led Estate project, the first project that we publicly announced was heavily driven by artificial intelligence in the sense that it's really driven by us as the vision, as the approach, but it's been embedded in multiple, sequences and phases where artificial intelligence was inserted in the operation and in the creative design process. And so it's unique as a challenge because, from the around 2023, we had diffusion AI models just come into the presence of our understanding of what AI is. And now we see it as a visual design tool, a visual generative tool that gives ideas as images. And that was the start. That's where we can pinpoint where the AI revolution has emerged into the design revolution. And from there, we realized it opened up doors to so many possibilities. So with a project like Lake Bled, its criteria is heavily, um, fixed on the necessity to accurately portray and celebrate heritage and recognizable, human architectural elements that exist in the locality, and we find that to be quite contrary to what AI is typically good
Yeah.
at, which is whimsical imagery
Mm,
without control, just AI unleashed, basically.
hmm.
So we found that project to be a good milestone for us because we learn to control methodically AI in a way that it outputs exactly what we want, but we also gave it to some liberty to offer us creativity
Options.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
opportunities. Yeah, so we are kind of like balancing between the two, not ensuring total control of AI, but ensuring total that the outputs eventually becomes refined and is driven back into the human requirements. So it's a fun experiment that eventually became our core methodology at our office where all projects we approach it in such a way because as a new practice with AI infused superpowers, you can call it, we find ourselves to generate a lot more possibilities and architectural potentials. We explore a lot more depth in the possible architectural and design directions than any other traditional firms. And at the same time, we use AI to expedite the production process of architecture. In, for example, early design concept, we can come out with beautiful, final looking,
Yeah.
realistic visuals. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's more efficient. You have more options. You really have, um, so I, in fashion, we're a little quirky. And so when we get excited by something, we scream. I'm sure architects don't do that, but we scream. And I have to say, seeing the unexpected coming alive on my screen and seeing all these images that were Norma Kamali, but in a way I'd never seen before, had me screaming. And, I usually come in on Sunday when nobody's here and I do it. And I'm like, wow. So, what I'm sure you didn't scream. Screaming is our thing. But what was the first thing that you saw that at least made you stand up and raise your hands? What was that visual? What was that experience? What happened that all of a sudden you looked at it and said, oh my God, I see this door opening. I see the opportunity here. What was that?
Yeah. In fact, there is what you would consider that eureka moment that kind of led to me go into this direction. If I paint a backdrop of the background story, I was working at Zaha Hadid Architects. I'm sure you're familiar with her work.
I love her work. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's amazing.
absolutely
Yeah, amazing
prolific
woman. Yeah.
individual. Yes. So from at that point, I will consider at that point at the height of my architecture career as someone who's working in another office, to me, working in what I consider my favorite architects, it was a dream. And while working there, one of our goals is always to understand what she would do. She died by the time I was
Yeah.
working there.
Yeah.
And of course, we always ask ourselves, what would she do? What would Zaha Hadid be? And that's a question we always ask in the firm, right? Like if you're representing her, obviously that's what you strive to do. So you figure out what is stylistically what she would do, functionally what she would do, problem solving, decision making, how each step of the way she would do it, and what we would consider as within the legacy of Zaha Hadid. And visually, of course, her stuff is very stunning, and you can pick out the correlations of all the nuances of the design visually and form and light. So it was all manual at that point, modeling, digitally rendering,
Wow.
and then for the very first time, I saw around May of 2023, I still remember that very moment. I was just checking on Instagram, scrolling, and then I see artificially generated images for the first time depicting Zaha Hadid's architecture, right? That was like a wow moment because prior to that, I was already invested in AI, but I didn't think of it as a design tool because prior to that, it was dealing with data sets. It was dealing with optimization. It
Right.
was dealing with structural optimization, stuff
Right.
I've done in the previous firm. But then for the first time, it was presenting visuals representative of a design of someone I'm very familiar and working within. So I was like, wow, that is the first time I actually seen synthetic design
Mm.
because visual represents design to us. It is the best medium for us to represent architectural design.
Yeah.
And so I decided to register for the, early access for these tools to try myself. And I was among one of the many at the time to start using it for architecture. And many other architects go in their own direction. They love the sort of crazy, fantastical, you know, completely abstract uh, predisposition that AI is at the time. And I already saw that that was what the internet was already inundated by.
Yeah.
So I think one of the eureka moment was me deciding, you know what, let's do the complete opposite. Let's try to control the tool, control the algorithm to do what I want and contain it. So everybody you can see create these fantasy-like architecture at the time. And for me, I was the one that was presenting on Instagram one day at a time, very small controlled architectural projects, one by one, like a little collection of experiments. And that's where I started to garner global attention, starting just from a simple Instagram
Yeah.
profile showcasing my experiments. So that spirit has carried me forward and how to contain, rationalize, control AI within the confines of our own design ethos.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I love that story. That's a great story. So one of the again, the questions that I'm asked is, um, you know, how could you, how can you use AI? It's, you know, creative people, especially when I speak to students in art schools or fashion schools, they're against it. They're really very few are pro, most are against. And so my question again, asking if AI uh, is the can be the creator, I present the notion of AI doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have passion, and it doesn't have creativity unless you feed it something to be creative with. And I believe in my heart that that is the difference between how we what we do with AI, how we use it. We can use it for efficiency, practicality, optimizing um, opportunities, but in the end, it's that feeling, that passion. So I had a dress that I'd done a few years ago, and Jessica Biel wore it on a new series she has on one of the streaming, and she looks so great in it. She's so gorgeous. Her shoulders are fantastic, and the dress had splicing across, and it was like, oh, I have to do that dress again. She looks too amazing. But I'd already done so many versions of it because it was a bestseller dress. I did it, and without AI, I did jumpsuits, dresses, tops, minis, everything you could think of. So I thought, oh, I need to do something else with it if I'm going to put it back in the collection. And I was blank, couldn't think at all about what else to do with it. I drained the brain on that dress. And so I presented the dress to AI and I said, I need versions of this to put together a capsule collection. And it came back with great ideas. And they looked like I did them. I mean, I looked at them and I thought I probably would have or could have. The only difference was I kept seeing this magic here, right? And AI didn't see that. I didn't use that picture as a reference. I just used other materials we had. And it did verticals and different versions of it. And so I put it in the collection and we did an installation and I said, this is Norma and AI, this is Norma. And it like it was part of the collection. Nobody questioned it. It was so authentic, Norma Kamali. So that's an example of I had an emotional connection to the way she looked in the dress, and I couldn't break that. I was stuck with it. AI had no emotional connection to any of it, and I didn't put that in the prompt. I didn't add that to it. So it generated, these great ideas. What's your experience with that, with the emotional passion, the difference between what you see a cloud that has a great pattern, or what's your experience with that?
Mhm. I think that's very consistent to what you've described your experiences. For example, you say that you know what normal Kamali is better than anyone else would. If a group of students were to prompt normal Kamali, they would not provide the same results with AI as you would. So you've developed a personal relationship in some sense with the tools you use. And it's not an issue. I think it's a great thing to romanticize the tool we use because a painter has a very special relationship with his paint or her
Yeah.
paintbrush. And if we really be completely authentic about this tool as a tool, we should see and even romanticize about the fact that the way we curate the results, the way we program the AI, the way we drive it towards our vision. Because every one, two, three images that we prompt out has already, created new synapses in our brain and we understand,
Hmm.
what is possible. And that sort of understanding is completely human. The way we continue to drive it, one step, two step, a few iterations later, and you'll be doing something that no one else is doing if they were in your shoes because only you are normal Kamali, for example. And so at the end of the day, it is an open mic and you're the speaker. It is a camera and you're the photographer. Anyone can have access and speak their mind or take whichever photograph. But just like any tool, you can always tell who's got it and who doesn't, because as people say, it doesn't take any talent to use AI. I mean, yes, we're not saying nobody can use AI, everyone can use it, but to use it for your own human excellence, to elevate yourself as an artist or architect or creator, that is ultimately the goal here. And from my experience, I'll tell you something very concrete. We as a team feel that because of AI, it has eliminated the 80% of our task force that is more so responsible for production, and it cannot eliminate the 20 or less
Right.
percent that is absolutely the the I would say mastermind behind
Right.
whatever we're doing as an
Yeah.
operations. So as a company, we are very compact, but we're very strict in the way we hire. We only hire people that we open international design competitions for, and
Oh, I
as well
love
as
that.
and
Mm.
design hackathons. So what we have, we call a hiring hackathon. To join our company, we have a open recruitment and people come in and then we vet out the right candidates and then they join a team of people to openly compete for the position as design exercises with AI. So everybody comes in confused and we just throw them right in the deep end.
That's
And
great.
no other architecture firm I've seen even do anything remotely similar to what we're doing. And I realized, this is the sort of process that is needed in today's day and age where human raw talent has to triumph the stuff that people do every day, the menial tasks, as we call it. And that is the only source of human input that will continually remain human while AI can help automate and replace the rest of our process.
Yeah.
And so I found that out and I really made sure I designed a system that highlights the human excellence. And that's my experience. It's been absolutely successful because of the core talent team that we're very proud to build together.
I love that is such a great idea. I love it. It's brilliant. And people have to earn the position at your company, which is really the ultimate. It's fantastic. I'm trying to think of how I can apply that right now as I'm talking to you. It's so smart. Um,
Our design world, for some reason, don't do that as much. But I've seen, there's friends who are bankers and they're working for finance and they go through like 10, 12 rounds of
I
interviews,
know,
right?
I know, I know, I know. It's because it's very hard. We're talking about talent, and it's really about spirit, right? It's the spirit, and you you have to see the spirit kind of evolve in front of you to really understand a creative person or the creative process. So the challenge that you're presenting actually is a great way for that to happen, because otherwise, um, it's a chance. You have to kind of feel whether or not that person see what they've done, but feel how they're going to adapt to your company. When you do, when you're working with I know for me, I can go down a rabbit hole so easily. It's like you start and you kind of can't stop because you keep going and going. Um, so in a way, you have to be disciplined, because you have deadlines, I have deadlines. We have to respect the deadlines, but it really is easy to go down the rabbit hole, and I'm always so grateful that I did. I never regret ever going down the rabbit hole. What? How do you? How does that fit with your schedule, your responsibilities, and yet it's sort of like just a pleasure, a guilty pleasure while you're trying to be disciplined and work? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, those are great questions. And they're pretty much the essence of what I try to balance day to day. And I would say, I guess, very fundamentally, what resonates with me in regards to this is probably the East Asian philosophy of yin and yang. Um, the more I grow and learn in this world, the more I realize that applies to more and more things. Just to strike the balance between different things. For example, what you described between exploring the rabbit hole and controlling the time, between controlling the AI or letting the AI go, between managing the company or letting the company automate. Um, Everything is about the art of balance in the end. And I think part of what I do that's been so successful has been attributed to my efforts in recognizing where the balances are, where the counterforces are, and at every stage of the way, learning to create the perfect balance between those two and creating a system to scale up these ideas and balances. And with AI, you have to do that so much more. Um, Public understanding of AI and their attitude towards it is also a balance. We don't want a world that's wholly, uh, saying yes to everything AI and just tastelessly doing everything and creating AI slops all over the world and over the internet. You don't want a world that's completely restrictive. You don't want a world that's completely saying the opposite and shutting down AI as a creative possibility. And so we have to find that balance and strive to be in the middle, ask acutely aware questions when human criticality should be in place and when we should allow AI to reform the way we think. It's a constant question that will remain unanswerable because AI as a technology is continually progressing and the future is hard to predict. I'm not someone who can tell you it's going this way or that way. We can all sort of make presumptions and just guesstimates, really. But been a very fun journey to see.
It is, and I think I'm curious a little bit about your background and what in your early years might have steered you towards technology being more open than maybe most people. Obviously, you're on the cutting edge of using AI in architecture in a way maybe that most firms are not using. So, what is different about you in your training, whether it's architectural training or prior to that, that opened your mind to thinking this way?
That's a great question. I would say one of the key examples is to look at Zaha Hadid, for example. Someone has been my idol for quite a while. not because of just her design, but because of her openness and approach to technological experimentation and her gravitating towards that as a practice allow the practice to flourish and design a new paradigm of design aesthetics that did not exist prior. We'll call it new futurism, parametricism. Things that have been opened up since then is now its own field of, architectural design and practice. And that has been opened up because of leaning heavily into technological capabilities that has been pioneered at the time. And so, with the very same spirit, I believe moving forward, we should now identify what is the most groundbreaking technology. And my goal, since I've already found AI to be that case, is to then pioneer it into a new dimension because the practice that came prior to me I guess I'm also, because of the circumstances and time, I am at the prime of what I believe I can do with technology and design. And I have the resource and skill sets to scale that up into what I believe is potentially the most um, optimal way, optimized way to run a practice with AI technology in mind. Practice that have been established prior to me are sort of more forcibly contained into a framework of what's pre-existing as technology. And now the firms that's going to come after us will lack the human talent and resources already invested that we have to, I would say, to catch up. And it would be great if some of them do. We're going to have great competition in the post AI world. But I'm right here on the cusp of it with our team, and we believe that we have, reached a good formula that will continually improve, but we are here as a first practice to prioritize merging AI and AEC and seeing where that takes us. Henceforth, I'm doing things like design hackathons and things I wouldn't think that I would do, but then because of AI, I'm sort of driven to I don't have to follow any system that existed prior. There's a very strict hiring process in architecture that we always follow as a blueprint. But blueprint to me can all be critiqued and improved, especially in the face of new technology.
Um, where did you study architecture?
So undergraduate, I studied in Canada in Toronto, Toronto Metropolitan University, and graduate, I studied at the Architectural Association, also following the footsteps of Zaha Hadid. And from then, I worked in several practices in London before I landed in Zaha Hadid and finally established my own firm here.
So, in addition to Zaha being a favorite of yours, what other architects, when you were kind of developing your sensibility in architecture, what architects were sort of influential to uh, your kind of view of what architecture could be?
I think a good uh, counterweight, I would say, to Zaha Hadid obsession that I had was also my admiration for like, Norman Foster. Foster and partner,
Wow. Well, that's different.
very much
That's
so.
very, yeah.
And it's for a good reason because I think what inspired me in Zaha Hadid is completely contrary to what I appreciate in Norman Foster. With Zaha Hadid, you get that sense of the soul, the spirit, the vision, the design, the art, the human, more so on the visual spectrum, visual arts, sculpture,
Hmm.
the manipulation of form and light, the augmentation of spaces. But with Foster, although those things are accomplished, but it's the beauty of how that elegance of elevating a space is accomplished through the authenticity of the structure, the form, and the functionality.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, form and function, these are constant things that's been discussed in architecture, and we should all go forward thinking about both. But there's a sense of placemaking that foster projects do, and the sort of authentic approach to structural design, engineering, and material and construction that really fills the gap of what I think some of Zaha Hadid's work, from what I've seen and witnessed. may have lacked. But there is a beautiful marriage to be made between what each are good at. And I think now with AI, that can be a
You
new,
can you
form
can
of
just, yeah,
experiment.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
That is very exciting. I mean, I all I could think of is, oh wow, let's see what that looks like. That what will happen with that. That's very interesting that you chose two very different architects with a different sensibilities completely, but both are like beyond excellent. They're really so up there. And so, how do you live? What is your environment like?
In what sense? Like
Well,
my
just that,
personal?
yeah. Unless you're in the stage of your life where you're working day and night and there's a mattress on the floor, which I had that part of my my career. But I'm just curious to hear what, if you have a choice at this point in your life, what is your choice for your environment?
Yeah, I always make a joke that I'm stuck in the stage where Bill Gates and Steve Wozniak is stuck in the basement working day and
Right.
night. And I joke that with my team because we have so much projects and not enough resource to deal with them.
Yeah.
But we are also optimistic since everything's been going so successfully in the last year or so, just astronomically increasing, scaling up as a company, very unprecedented. But, beyond all that, we're just trying to figure out what is the best way to scale up a company with solid foundation. And right now, experimentation is going off the rails. We have a research design team that is just doing everything, experimenting with everything. And for us, we have a design team and, traditionally registered architects that we want to make sure that the core values and everything is projected forward.
Mm,
And the branding of our company as well. We want to be future forward, but we don't want to be, just untethered or
yeah.
uh, there's conventions in architecture that we really want to uphold. And so we have to find that balance in between. And for me, I'm just here by myself in London. My family's in Canada. My extended family's in China. We're all around the world, and it's just me here in London. And now I consider my company that I opened here as my baby, because it's really taken everything out of me to run and grow this company. So yeah, I'm just completely immersed in it at the
Yeah,
moment.
I would say, for the first 14 years, I'm in business now 58 years, but 14 years, it was uh, it was rough. I mean, it was filled with passion and hard work, and it still is. But um, I'm not on the mattress in the sample room, is what I'm saying. I'm not sleeping overnight on the cutting table. I'm not doing things that need to be done because they need to be done. It's a different level now. The interesting thing is, just to tell you that once you do that, once you're able to do what you're doing, do what I did, and the reason I think I'm still in business is because I keep coming up with new ideas that challenge me in the same way. And I say to myself, do I really need to work 7 days a week? Is this really what you want at this point in your career? But I get so excited by the new idea that if you have that spirit, it's very possible that it will remain a part of how you're working, but in a different context. Hopefully, I don't know how many years. How many years have you been in business independently?
Independently, 2 years.
Okay, you only have 12 to go.
I'm hoping AI can accelerate that a bit
I
more.
think, you know what, I actually know it will. I'm
Mm,
positive it will, but the it's the ideas and how you implement everything. There are so many factors involved. because you are building something that's unique. What what's the what's the what's the dream? Like, how do you manifest right now? And it'll change, I'm sure, in a year, in 2 years. But how are you looking at the dream? What is that inspiration that uh, keeps you going through the times when you think, oh my God, I don't know anybody who's done this before. I'm trying to figure it out myself. What the hell am I doing? Do I know what I'm doing? Okay, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway.
Hmm.
What
Yeah,
is
that's
that
a really
dream?
real question. Like, there's gotta be honest. There's definitely a lot of times where there's burnouts and there's fatigue and there's just a senseless zombie-like sort
Right.
of state that you'd be on just to make sure things get going. And every waking hour of my life, I am either optimizing my time for something, or I'm working, or I am taking a break and vacationing for the sake of working better. Everything has to be very well calculated. But again, it's the art of trying to balance it out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, ultimately, I have to look forward and look at the bigger picture. And I think that's what always drives you. It's
Mhm.
seeing the biggest picture of what you're trying to accomplish and where you are and where we are, we believe, is riding a wave of what's very important is exploring a new frontier that has been opened up to humanity. Artificial intelligence, this goes beyond just architecture, right? This is revolutionizing everything. And for us, in the realm of architecture, there is so much subsets that we have to explore. And because it's such a Pandora's box that has been opened, we found ourselves like new fishes in the deep blue ocean that has completely been untouched. Everywhere we swim, doesn't matter where,
Yeah.
you're in a new territory. And that is so exciting that we just feel like we want to scale up as much as possible, to explore as much as possible. And the only thing limiting us is the resource and the speed at which we can do it. But otherwise, we want to really be on the ball more so than any architecture firms. And I have to say, fortunately, architecture as an industry is a little slower to adapt to technology for some reason than most other industries. So the competition isn't as, you know, strict as I would say, even in fashion or art, things that, are a bit more direct from your idea to the output. Architecture is so many layers of
Yeah.
process, right? And
Yeah.
we have to develop, you have to detail, you have to worry about construction. And so because that's the case, they were less prone to be inclined to explore technology as much. And so architectural technology has always had a lag time. And we're using programs like AutoCAD, and you wouldn't believe, how clunky some of those functionalities are. And that is our legal documentation for an output to
Wow.
architecture. Yeah, it's quite clunky, and this industry is hard to adapt because it's so stratified. There's different, layers of what we have to do, and we just want AI to just come and blow it out the box and just completely revamp everything and rethink about the whole strategy going from design idea to construction materialization. I believe that is here today, and we have an incentive to be the first one to really engage in that.
Um, it's so exciting. I mean, as you say it, I used to say fashion was the slowest in technology. It took forever for people to move into having a website, and very slow. But I think I might agree with you. I used to date an architect for quite some time, and I was like, "Oh my God, you guys are worse than we are.
Yeah.
What is happening?" And the tedious hours of work that is so necessary in so many ways. And the design can be fantastic, but the building can't fall over. A seam can rip on a dress, but it's not, it's not as crucial or as permanent and lasting as a piece of architecture. not only from the design perspective, but the practicality of people actually using it and it surviving hundreds of years if necessary because of what it is. The one of the things, and this really is just a personal thing. I am fascinated with these prefab um, homes that are really beautifully designed. Some of them are really incredible. What do you think about that? I mean, I find it sort of a problem solver for financial constraints, for situations where you need homes built for certain emergencies, whatever, and then some of them being architectural, beautiful experiences in utilitarian homes. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is what you see as a result of technological progress and international collaboration and globalization. I think this is generally economically and just functionally more efficient because we all collaborate across the world with different materials and different tools, different factory, ship things on site and just put them on whenever you need to, or then you can disassemble and then reassemble it somewhere else. There's so much practicality and feasibility in doing things this way in prefabricated modules. That's something that's a very peculiar and specific topic, but it's really interesting to open this up because we are now reaching, I would say, hopefully the space age, or the start of the space age. Hopefully AI is accelerating that. I didn't believe much of that, post NASA, post Apollo, because of how much uh
Right.
how much it slowed down. But now I'm starting to see it again. I'm starting to see the competition, privatization of space industry. We are working, with space related industries right now for
Oh
space
wow.
related architectural projects, and it's going to increase. And I think it's really fun and wonderful, and just to the spirit of human nature. Spirit of human nature is to progress forward, explore the frontiers, and of course, space is the final frontier. And we hope to see, human proliferate our colonies beyond just Earth. And prefabrication is definitely one of the ways to go. Modular architecture kit of parts. These are going to be somehow the future of architecture and of how AI can scale up architecture. And this is why we have to talk about where we are in humanity and where we're going. In order to scale up, you have to industrialize certain process. And the industrialization of architecture itself, or the construction of architecture, goes into modularization. You can talk about metabolism architecture, self-assembling, self-healing, or self-constructing architecture. There's so many new facets that have been opened up since we started talking about AI being involved in construction, AI automation, robotic fabrication.
Hmm.
Those are very exciting fields, and we've
I
done
agree.
to a certain extent since that time. Even as Hadid, we've done things with robotic arms. Those are fun, but now it's moving on. AI, intelligent self-correcting systems, is going to open more doors, which means architecture should change and must change.
Yeah, I think so. I think it can also solve so many problems with cost of housing and how the inequity of how people live in countries that don't have the support system for housing, where this could just change everything. I find it so exciting. Um, the I mean, there are so many opportunities with AI that have to do with becoming more conscious of the needs of the globe, but also futuristic travel to outer space. And I think it's the same with clothing, and nobody needs clothing. Nobody needs another t shirt. Nobody needs another anything, but there are some human needs, some feelings about how we clothe ourselves, what we wear, how we dress. But then there's the technology of clothes that can measure our body, measure our heartbeat, can regulate heat and temperature, can protect us against environments, whether it's out of space or in environments where there's global warming or changes in. I mean, there are responsibilities now that maybe designers and architects have sort of just looked at the spiritual aesthetic and not looked at how do we serve the world, how do we serve the globe, how do we serve people who are not experiencing how they live and how they're covering their bodies for some real good. And if it has some medical implications and support, if it has some support for financially providing for these people through what they wear and how they live, it would be such a beautiful thing for us to be achieving that goal and getting to that place. And I agree with you that AI opened the door to dreaming, which goes back to my question about what's your dream. The dream is, how can we look at the world we live in now with a new lens and see all the possibilities of what we can do? And it is truly so exciting. I have to do everything I can to live to 120. You still have a few years of exploration. My goal is I have to really be healthy so I can
And
enjoy
it's more and
this.
more possible with AI nowadays.
Yes,
With
yeah,
health, everything is just gonna astronomically improve, hopefully, with AI technologies.
yeah, yeah. I well, let's really make sure it does. Is there anything that you're working on uh, that you want to talk about because you think it's going to make a big change, or is it in the secret sauce right now and you're not ready to talk about it?
I mean, when it comes to client works, there's a lot of confidentiality agreements that's signed. So there's nothing I can say concretely, but amount of the sort of scale that we're covering right now is quite exciting because we got urban scale master plan city projects, we
Wow.
got architecture projects, and we've got you know uh, different types of hospitality resort projects in different biomes and climates in different continents. And so it's really allowing us to explore, fully how we can incorporate some of our design ethos in different contexts, cultural contexts, and environmental contexts. So I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things that we'll be announcing in the foreseeable future. Architecture does take time, and being a young practice of barely 2 years, everything's still under the wraps. Concept design, stage design, detail design, and not even construction yet, but that's going to eventually take hold. But we're patient, architects, they're all kind of known in as late bloomers in the older age, and rightfully so, because we can't just paint something and let that be, the result and be known for it. And that's okay. We will take the time, be patient,
Mhm.
and let the end result speak for itself. And one of the biggest dreams for me one day is to be able to answer some of your questions, especially questions that people who are naysayers of AI will ask that, oh, how can AI be creative? How can AI do architecture? And hopefully by then I could just say, come walk into the building that we've built with AI
Yeah.
and explore it yourself and experience it yourself. That would be the biggest victory in terms of convincing them.
One of the because AI is still really in its early stages. Um, One of the sort of early symptoms that people talk about are hallucinations. Have you had experiences with hallucinations?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, funnily, we actually sort of reframe that as we'll call it creativity
I
in
do
some sense
too.
because
I do
yeah, yeah,
too.
there we go. Great minds think alike.
I was going to lead that by saying my most favorite creative experiences when I just go into it to be creative and not have an agenda. Um, I just let the hallucinations go, and it's beyond exciting. I mean, I know it's going to go away, but every time I create something where hallucinations played a part, I just think of it as a little piece of history, a documentation of history before AI was perfect. This could happen.
Mm.
And so, yes. So, how did you come up with the creativity on your end?
I would dare to say, even to answer your point, that it's not just this part in history, that it's going to be purposefully programmed into
Yes, yes,
later stage.
yes,
We
yes,
want the
yes,
ability to
yeah,
explore possibilities. We want variations. We want things that hasn't entered our mind yet,
yeah.
but is now presented on a silver platter, hundreds of thousands of options, and then we pick from that. That's actually the core of our creative process, you know. When we start a project, traditionally architecture, you sketch out something, you have an idea, you work it out, and then you refine, and then all of a sudden you have a photorealistic rendering after you do a production of it. Today's day and age, we're doing the complete opposite. We start with thousands of ideas and we refine those ideas. We have a smaller cluster of
Mm-hmm,
ideas, and then we continually refine in the direction we want. So we're kind of like an octopus in a way at the beginning, just exploring all the different
mm-hmm.
angles of a potential project until we refine to the final vision. But every stage of the way, there is already final looking renders of the project for
Yeah,
you to already picture what it looks like as
I
an end
know.
result.
Yeah,
And that is it's quite groundbreaking.
yeah.
So you're super clear on your vision and you're just refining as you go. So you're no longer taking things out of thin air, but you are getting inspired by what's around you and refining it. I would say more like an evolutionary process, such as the beauty of nature, how it does
Mm,
that as opposed to a complete creative process like I could say a watchmaker would design a mechanism from nothing, but you actually experience the mechanism of nature itself by using AI in that sense.
yeah, yeah. It's so exciting, and um, just changing the prompts as it's happening and playing with the prompts. It's the best. It's as light and high as you can get without any drugs, without
It's also the most creatively draining thing to do, isn't it?
it is. You need a nap. I think I'm gonna go lie down for a minute because it's totally wipes you out. But it's a thrill. It's an absolute thrill. And hopefully um it will evolve and be even more exciting and impactful, and hopefully have a real purpose that people understand without fear. But questions are always good. Um,
Fear is
so
normal and it's expected, just like
yeah,
any technology.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. Anyway, it was such a pleasure meeting you. I was excited about meeting you. When I heard about you, I was like, "Oh my god, I have to have a minute with this guy. He sounds amazing." So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and I'm so happy to share people on my podcast who are involved with AI, and I love what you're doing, and I will keep watching and seeing what you're up to.
Thanks, Norma. It's been a huge pleasure as well, and great questions. Very engaging and stimulating.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.
Thanks, Norma. You too. See
Bye
ya.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, press follow and leave a comment after you listen to the podcast. Thanks.